Welcome to Ustick Road Church of the Nazarene in Caldwell, Idaho. This is the Sunday morning service. And now your speaker, Senior Pastor Brian Dyer.
This is the story of Noah. How many of you have read the story of Noah in the Bible? How many of you know the story, but you've probably never read it? Don't raise your hand. It's one of those stories that gets told over and over and over again, and it's a kind of a funny thing because even if you don't read it, even all of the intricate details, exactly how long he is in the ark, is lost on you because you think it's like 40 days and 40 nights. It turns out to be 6 months. All of the stuff there. When you think about him, I don't know, you probably watched that blasphemous show a few years ago. Where it happened by some other means, but God was the one who bends down and shuts up the door of the ark. All of the details there, the nuances, the things of it that are actually true. We can get carried away sometimes in the stories without actually knowing all of the stuff. But I'm not going to try and read all of it to you this morning, but I would encourage you to go through. It starts here at verse 9, and it goes through chapter 8, but I'm only going to give you chapter 6. So if you want the rest of it, you're going to have to work a little harder than that. This is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. You remember that? Walked faithfully with God. We've seen that before, haven't we? That's the same thing that was used to describe his great-grandfather, Enoch. Walked faithfully with God. Noah walked faithfully with God. Unlike Enoch, though, he never met Adam. Adam is already departed from the earth at this point. It's about 1,200 years, 1150 or something like that, when Noah is born, and then 500 years later he gets the revelation for the ark. So you're still only looking at about 1,000 years. You're not looking at today. I'm thinking we should have a flood any minute now. But God had made a promise, I think we would be having one already. But we're far ways away. But this was only 1,000 years away from the time that they were expelled from the Garden of Eden. This is not a lot of time. Only several generations have passed. And of course, Adam lived to be 930. So the very first man has only been gone for 200 years. They knew all of these things. They had great information. Anyway, that's just one of those points where you just have to stop and think about. He is blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high. That's 18 inches. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I'm going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the earth will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God had commanded him. Father, add your blessing to your word. Speak to our hearts what you have for us. Pray, dear God, hide the speaker behind the cross. Lord, be glorified in Jesus' name. Amen. I always find it intriguing. I learned this a long time ago, and I found it interesting to find that most cultures have a story of Noah and the ark. Almost every culture every major culture across the face of the planet has a story of Noah and the ark. Now, they don't always say Noah and the ark. A lot of the time, the influences are there, but they don't realize that that's what it is. I heard an atheist one time talking. He goes, well, maybe there was just a great flood once, and it didn't have to be Noah. And I just thought, well, you knucklehead, it was Noah. He will admit to a great flood, but it can't be Noah. It could be a flood of some other sort. Maybe there's a great flood and everybody was killed, but it wasn't Noah. And I go, well, what makes you think it wasn't Noah? That's the only one we've got, the only account we've got, and you want to discount the only story that you've got. It's kind of an interesting thing. Everybody affirming this Noah. And I found this, I don't remember who introduced it to me, but I saw this when I looked up this in the Chinese language. This is to create. That's the Chinese they don't have letters like we have. They don't have a vocabulary, an alphabet like us. So everything has its own sign, which is really quite kind of an interesting thing, because you would have to memorize it. That's why I believe it's the hardest language on earth to learn, because they don't have an alphabet that you can decipher the words. You have to learn different signs. But some of the signs are compound signs. You can see this one. That's the word for create, to create. And you see the cross over top of the box. The little box down below is actually man or mouth. And so that's to speak. And then that one breaks down into dust and life and walk. So to create, all you have to do is put together mud, dirt, and life, speaking, and it walks. And that means to create. Does that remind you of anything? Do you not see the creation of mankind in that? That God spoke and the dirt came to life, and that was creation? I just think that that's intriguing. And this was another fun one. In the Chinese language, which is not Christian-based, is the point of it, and it predates Christianity. And here's the word for boat. A vessel, 8 people. How many people on the ark again? 8 people on the ark. 8 people on a vessel. That's their sign for the boat. I think that God leaves these little nuances, and He puts these little clues throughout all of history so that we can find them. Paul says even the earth itself bears witness to a Creator. Everything about us screams out the existence of God and decries His glory so that we can see it, and we can see Him in everything. And He's left these hints even in other languages that are not glorifying to Him. People had, in 1,000 years, become so corrupt. They had deviated so far from their foundation. And I thought, didn't take us no 1,000 years. I think our country's done it in 200. We beat that 1,000 years all to pieces. And I look at mankind in my lifetime. Just the way that how far we've come. We've made a lot of progress. We're creative. Man, I tell you what, the internet. Who would have imagined? Do you remember when you were a kid? Any of you guys ever watched Get Smart? And he would talk on his shoe phone. And we all thought that was ridiculous. It was so crazy to see a guy talking on, like you could have a phone that be that small, that it would fit in your shoe. Do you know how easy it would be to make a shoe phone nowadays? You can put a phone, now we carry them in our pockets. That was absurd when we were children. That he had his computer. If you remember his computer, it took as much room as it was a massive computer, and one little readout would come out on anything, And now, of course, you got laptops that are just these little tiny laptops, And in truth, your telephone is also a computer. What we do today is so fantastic. People are so brilliant, but our creativity doesn't stop with just the things that are constructive. People are creatively destructive as well. The things that they can do to damage their lives and to mess themselves up. We're experts on it. It was no exception in Noah's day. People had come so far in deprivation. I wrote this down here. Often people are their own worst enemies. I put the big bad wolf was framed. We got these pigs now. Lynn came over and dropped off a pig for me yesterday. I got one of his boars to use to breed with my sows, and so he brought it over and he looked at my pig pen, and I have a house that we had built there for them. That's the 3rd house that I built for those pigs. They've all been made out of wood. I guess I need to go to bricks, because Lynn said that's what my pigs did to their houses too. I had 2, and they just tore them apart. Those pigs, now my sows are probably 350 to 400 pounds, somewhere in there. And so they're big girls. And they just tear those houses apart. They just destroy them. And it's like, and that's why I say the big bad wolf, they didn't even need a big bad wolf. I think those pigs, I think they tore up their own houses. I don't think the big bad wolf was really anywhere around. I think they did the damage themselves. I think it's just like humanity. Sometimes we say the devil made me do it, and the devil says, man, that's a great idea. I wish I'd have thought of that. You came up with that all on your own. People come up with their own destructive behaviors. I don't think we need a devil. I think that we are our own worst enemies sometimes. Now, don't misunderstand me. I believe the devil applauds us for our creativity, for those things that we do that are outside the will of grace. But we sometimes can get so selfish and thoughtlessly do things that are condemning to our own souls. Things that are just destructive. And once you go down that path, there's no telling where it's going to end up at. If you could do horrendous things, I believe that some of the nicest people do some of the naughtiest things. When Nancy and I get over to the prison, it's hard for me to imagine sometimes when I learn the stories of the people that we're ministering to. And I think, how could this guy, who is this person that I know to be a man of integrity and a person who operates in such a place, could do the despicable things that they do? But I think that we take off down a road, and if we're not careful, I don't think it really takes evil. I think it just takes thoughtlessness. This morning in Sunday school, we talked quite a bit about how if you're not careful, you'll be selfish, and you can hurt other people just by foolishness, just by not being sensitive to the fact that you can affect others around you. We just move, and we just think selfish. It's not that you think you're trying to hurt anybody. You're just not being sensitive to anybody else's, and you just go down this path. You wind up someplace bad. And that's what happened in Noah's day. They had just gone down the path. I put living on the edge is risky. I think that you can do that if you try to get away with as much sin as you can. Do you know people like that? Not you, but you've got friends like that. Those people, those other churches, those guys. When you try to get away with as much as you can, some people they seem like they're trying to stay as compromised with the world as they can be and still call themselves a Christian. It's like, I think I can do this and still be okay. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, because I just desire to do something. And so then they start doing something, and eventually it just leads them into another path. And you compromise a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and the closer they get to the edge, and before they know it, they've fallen off, and they're doing things that they would have never thought to do otherwise. I know that we don't think that it pertains to us. We don't think that makes any application to us, but I really truly believe that it does. I don't know. This was not something I intended to share, but I got the privilege of sitting in on a jury this week. I had jury duty this month. I hate jury duty. I hate it. I don't like it. I don't like it when I don't like the most? I don't like calling in every single day. I hate that. And I'll be honest with you, I almost always forget. If they don't call me by the end of the month, I won't call them either. You don't call me, I won't call you. It's like we'll leave each other alone, we'll be fine. But it doesn't always work out that way. They really get testy when you don't call them, I think. But anyway, I got called in to sit on a jury. And I hate that. I hate it. I'm going to make a judgment call over somebody else's life. I just don't, are you guys ever had to do that? Were you uncomfortable? I was uncomfortable. I hated it. But anyway, the guy that we got to do the jury for, that I was on the jury for, it seemed like a nice guy. I mean, just from his family and all of the things about him, but he liked to drink. He liked to drink. And he'd gotten really drunk, and he had molested his girlfriend's daughter. And so, but I don't think he meant to. He just wanted to have a drink. He was just partying on New Year's Eve, I mean, what are you going to do, right? You just having a good time with his friends. And it just took him someplace he didn't know to go. And there's no turning back. There's no turning back. In just a moment, you changed and destroyed his own life and the life of this little girl and the life of his so many people in one moment, because he decided that he wanted to compromise. And that compromise led to another compromise, which put him in a place where he was outside of his own good thinking. Guys, you don't get to go down that road and then slam on the brakes and say that you've gone too far. You want to go down that road, the devil will drive. He'll hop in the driver's seat, but when you get to the end of it, it's not the end of it. You'll keep on going. We as Christians have an obligation to try to live in this world, to love other people, to love the people of the world, but to live as close to Jesus Christ as we can. The closer we compromise, And the more we compromise, it makes a relevance in every regard. It's your finances too. The Jews, when they would harvest their land, they would harvest all of it in the center, and they would leave the outside edges for the poor. But if you harvest everything in the outside edges, it's okay, I suppose. You just don't leave anything for the poor. But I think in our own lives, God gives us this much. And He commands us to live on this much. And if we can live on this much, then you've got this much of a margin. This is on the outside edges. But if you live all the way out to the edge, when something bad happens, you've got no reserve. There's nothing left. All your money just goes away. But what about your time? You've got this much time, but if you book everything as solid as you can with only selfish agendas, you have nothing to share with anybody else. And then when something comes up, I was driving into the store yesterday. I was going into Fred Meyer's. This lady behind me, I'm getting ready to turn left. And guys, I got a lead foot. I'm a fast driver. You know what I mean? I like to push the cops, keep them on their toes. You know, when I was young, I traded in my 1972 my Chevy Nova for a Ford Escort. A gutless Ford Escort, because I had gotten so many tickets in that Nova, I had to unload that baby. It was a dangerous car for me to be driving. You know, but I'm not like a slow driver. I'm a fast driver. I pulled up here, the light was blinking yellow. I had to slow down for this car turning. This lady whips in behind me. As the light turns green, she starts honking. I know. I got out of the car, I went back. I didn't. Oh, I hate that. You know, I know what you would do. You would probably go 2 miles an hour after that. It's what I wanted to do. Trust me. And I thought, okay. Just drive. Don't be an idiot. You just be sane. I'm talking myself off the cliff. You know, and I get up to the speed bump, and this lady gets right on me, and I go, oh, what an obnoxious woman. You know, I didn't have anything in the car to throw at her. I wanted to shoot my laser ray at her. Nothing. I was completely unprepared. So I just drove and prayed and kept my attitude as good as I could keep it. She zoomed past me and went in and pulled up into a parking space over there and jumped out of her car and went run up, and she had one of her uniforms on. And she was running late for work, apparently. And I just thought, yeah, your lack of preparedness is not an emergency on my part. You know, when you live right on the edge, she pushed herself up till either she was late or almost late. And then when something goes bad, you've got no time, no margin for error, so nothing can happen. If the light is blinking yellow, you've got to hit the roof. You know, there's no time for that. You get stopped by a train. Well, their train is terrible now. You've got to kill yourself because you're all the way at the edge of your rope already. You know, let's say Doug is coming in here on Sunday morning. He gets stopped by a train. I don't know how the train's going to stop him between here and his place, but let's imagine a train jumps the rail. There's an accident. You know what it means? If he gets stopped for 20 minutes, it means he's only going to be 2 hours early for church. You know, when you live your life right up to the edge, taking all of the resources and everything that God has put you in charge of, and you're not a good steward of it, then you're not going to have anything left for reserve in any capacity when something goes wrong. We are commanded to be good stewards. And the funny thing of it is I'm not just a steward of my resources for my benefit, but for yours as well. I am my brother's keeper. I am responsible to give to others, and I am responsible to be kind and to be open-handed. I'm called to that. But I can't do that if everything I have is used on me right up to the very edge. Do you guys follow that? And it's that way morally. If I decide to try and sneak into the kingdom without doing anything more for Christ than I possibly can do, then I'm running a risk. And if I'm trying to get away with as much sin as I can without falling off the edge, I'm running the risk. You're running a risk. It's risky. Why? Because evil deeds gain evil rewards. You do something wrong, you do what's bad, bad things are going to happen. It is the natural repercussion of life. It is the way that God has ordained for the world to operate. That when you do bad things happen to you. And if bad things don't happen to you, then that's bad. When somebody does something that's evil and bad things happen to them, that's a good thing. One of the worst things possible is when you get away with doing something bad. You follow that? You do something bad and you get punished for it, everybody needs to go, yeah! That Crystal got in trouble. Yes, that's a wonderful thing. Yeah. Why? Because when you do something bad and you get away with it, it tells you that it's okay. If you're out drunk driving, I hope you get busted. I do. I hope you get busted and you get into trouble for it. Why? Because if you don't, then something worse could happen. Something horrible could be coming down the road for you. If you do something that's bad and nothing bad happens, glory to God. What happened for the folks is they drowned because of the ark. I mean, God drowned them. He said, listen, I've been giving you all of these warnings. I've been telling you. You've only been there 1,000 years. I've called people up to you, and you're not listening. I'm just done. I'm done fighting with you. Eventually, the Lord says, that's far enough. And evil things happen. Guys, there's not going to be a whole lot worse happen to you than that you drown and go to hell. That's about as bad as it's going to get. Evil deeds gain evil rewards. We can't justify it either. It's not that bad. Guys, it doesn't have to be that bad. It just has to be bad enough. Stay as close to the Lord as you can. I remember this story. I've told it. There were two guys applying for a job. They went up to this logging company. I think it was in Cascade. I made that up. They went up to apply for this job, and they got loaded up with these logs. And the first guy, they're going to say, we're going to take whoever goes down this mountain. We're going to hire you by how well you can take these logs down the side of this mountain. So they load up both of these things with a team of horses. It's been years ago. The first guy, he takes off down the mountain, and he knows, man, I'm going to win. I'm going to get down this thing as fast as I can. He goes down the mountain, and those things are flying down. Those logs are going down. The horses are going down around. They go around a corner. One of the wheels from the wagon goes off the side of the cliff, and he pulls it back on with the horses as they continue down at record speed. He's going down. He goes down another cliff. Two wheels of the wagon come off the cliff, but he still pulls it back on. Eventually he goes around another one. 3 of the wheels from the wagon come around, and he pulls it back on. He gets down to the bottom, record speed. Nobody's ever seen anybody come down the mountain that fast. The second guy goes down the mountain. He's got his horses, and he gets right up against the edge of the mountain and comes down and just nice and slow makes it all the way down. And the second guy got the job. Because the goal was not to get as close to the edge as you can without falling off. The goal is to get as close to the mountain as you possibly can. And for us as Christians, our goal is to get as close to the Lord as we can while still walking on earth. Glory to God. If you fail at that, then you might be Enoch, where you get too close to God and God says, let's take him on out of there. That's enough. Our goal is not to see how close and how worldly we can be. I use this kind of language. I can do this and I can do that. Forget that. That's garbage. Just throw it away. You get the things out of your life that don't sound like Jesus. You try and act as much like him as you possibly can be to represent the cause of the cross and the kingdom over and above your own agendas. Your own agenda will be taken care of by the grace of God. The Lord knows what your needs are. Those will be all right. Last point, and this is for Noah. And we always think about poor Noah sitting out there in the middle of the desert building his ark. You know, I mean, that's always one of those amusing concepts, is that rejection by the world may be a condition for acceptance by God. He was rejected. He had to have been ridiculed, all of his neighbors. What are you building, Noah? I'm building an ark. What's an ark? Really huge boat. What are you building it for? It's going to be a flood. What's a flood? It's when all the water covers the earth. How's it going to get here? It's going to rain. What's rain? It's when the earth is covered with water that falls from the sky. Dude, there is something wrong with you. You know, I mean, you know, he had to meet all of the rejection of all of his neighbors. But he was faithful and he did everything that God had commanded him. And only he and his 7 family members were rescued from the flood. God rewards those. Just as he punishes evil, he does reward those who are faithful to him. But rejection by the world, don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of that. If the world rejects you because you know, I always tell people, you know, one guy says, when you become a Christian, do you have to give up your friends? And this fellow said, it wasn't me, I stole it from someone else, said it first. He said, you know, when you become a Christian, do you have to give up all your old friends? He said, no. He said, you just start living close to Jesus and seeking the Lord, those friends will give you up. Those friends will give you up. And it's true. You stop participating in those things that are damaging and destructive to your soul, you'll find out who your true friends are. The ones who are really your friends, they'll still be your friends throughout all time. You'll love them, they'll love you, and you'll stay close. The ones who are not friends, they'll fall off by the wayside. Those will be the ones who reject you because they really demand you to accept their lifestyle choices and who they are. And when you say, listen, I love you more than life, but I'm following Jesus Christ at this point, those things will change. They'll change. And I think that we as Christians have to have enough backbone to stand up to those things, to be able to say, I'm walking with Jesus Christ. When I was a kid, I used to go in, my mom was a cook at this bar. You guys remember when most of the time you would go to the bar when you were going to eat at a restaurant? I don't know about your town, but the town that I lived in, there were bars, and those were the restaurants first. So people would go there, and you would actually go to the bar to eat. You know, I mean, if you're going to go out to eat, you went to a bar. And my mom was a cook in this bar, and so I would go in there and wash dishes. I would wash the dishes at the bar that my mom cooked at. And when I became a Christian, I really felt convicted that I shouldn't go into a bar. You know, my parents had divorced. They were both heavy drinkers and stuff. I didn't want any part of that. And so I went into the bar, and I told my mom, the next time I'd gone over, I think it was to her house, I said, Mom, I can't come into that bar and do the dishes anymore. And she said, and she would pay me. I mean, it was $1 or $2, whatever it was. And she said, why is that? And I said, I'm a Christian now, and I just don't think that I should be doing that. And she said, okay, that's fine. Just don't you be a hypocrite. You know, and I thought that was the best advice that I ever received from anybody in my spiritual journey. It was my mom when she wasn't walking with the Lord. You want to be a Christian, but don't you be a hypocrite. You know, and I think that that's powerful. And I think that it's a word of admonition for each and every one of us, that the world is watching us. They might not conform to the pattern of Jesus Christ, but they can see that you do. And in your faithfulness, they see what it means. They see what it means to be a Christian. They can see what it means to walk with the Lord, because you walk with God. But that also means that we need to walk faithfully with the Lord. We need to be faithful in our own spiritual journey because people are watching. And as the saying is, you know, you're the only Jesus some will ever see. We're the only testimony that they have of who Christ is.
Thanks for joining us today. You can find Ustick Road Church of the Nazarene on the web at usticknaz.org and on many social media sites at usticknaz. Thanks, and God bless.